Hello and welcome. My name is Errity Green and this is Wise Woman Oracle and Tarot, once called Wise Woman Television. And today I'm bringing you a pick a card reading on your soul's journey. So we'll be talking about those long-standing themes and patterns of your soul's journey, sort of those kinks that it's been ironing out for lifetimes or eternity or whatever. So I encourage you to stick around. I think this will be a fun, deep, and meaningful one. I do want to let you know that I offer both personal readings as well as coaching programs to support you in your life and your work and on your spiritual path. We have a final couple of days for Spirit Woman. It's enrolling now. You can check out those details below or at erritygreen.com/spiritwoman. The last thing that I'll suggest is if you find that you enjoy your reading or that it lands or resonates, that you share your story with us below and that you press the bell icon. That way you receive notifications every single time a video pops up. All right, so from here we will get started. You have 3 card piles to intuitively choose from today. Okay, so card pile 1, your soul's journey. I just feel so good about this. So what I'm feeling right away is that one of your long-standing, and I'm smiling because I don't know, it feels good and this is a fun reading, is that it's allowing yourself to experience the harvest, the abundance, the fruits of your labor. That perhaps maybe subconscious patterning gets in the way, and this could have to do with past life history. If you subscribe to that, if you don't, could very well have to do with childhood history. Usually those things go hand in hand. It's not giving me specific details. Sometimes I'll get those for past lives, or I'll get something really specific like a particular kind of person or path or block. We'll put that in quotes, block. I don't believe in blocks as a final reality. They're blocks to the extent that we give them our thoughts, words, energy, and attention. However, it feels like that you are meant for more. You're meant for greater abundance. You're meant to live well. And perhaps for a long time, again, either in this life or previous lives or whatever, your soul's journey is learning to come into greater harvest, learning to come into greater abundance, learning to be able to experience everything this earthly life has to offer. This could also have to do with earthly pleasures too, where you might maybe not allow yourself to indulge or to experience the different riches of life. Maybe you have subconscious fears or even conscious fears around losing control or losing yourself to something. But in one way or another, you have limited yourself in terms of the amount of abundance you can experience. Now, for some of you, I feel like this could be a worthiness pattern, that lack of deservingness or self-value, something like that. But here's what's interesting is it doesn't feel like a heavy energy at all. This doesn't feel super dense. And not that, it usually doesn't feel that way to me at all ever, to be completely honest with you. If anything, I'll feel emotional or, feel that kind of energy moving through me, but it never feels dull or dark or dense or any of that stuff or heavy. Every great once in a while. But in general, like what wants to happen for your soul's journey is that it wants to come into greater abundance. It wants to experience everything that is here and available for you to experience. There is something here about your subconscious. I almost want to read it and see if there's more here. Facing fear, subconscious release, healing. Yeah, so taking a look at those areas. I know we already covered this a little bit more generally speaking, but taking a look at any kind of fear, whether subconscious or otherwise, that might hold you back or prevent you from experiencing more of what life has to offer. I feel like, again, there's this lively, abundant energy that's available here. And I feel like some of you already are aware of this energy and you might occupy and carry this energy or reside in this energy. And maybe this was a history and maybe at one point you didn't always do this, or in previous paths/lifetimes you didn't do this, and now you are. But for some of you also, you're going to find that you haven't fully stepped into this abundant energy yet. But that's what wants to come through for your soul's journey, is coming alive, ripeness, harvest, abundance, experiencing the fruits of your efforts, the fruits of your labor. Okay, so let's see here. Yeah, so it feels like you have a lot of gifts. I'll show you some of these cards because today's energy feels a little bit slower and easygoing for me, where I'm not trying to have to capture so much energy and momentum. Sometimes it depends on my energy. If I'm really excited and energetic, things flow through very quickly and it's hard for me to capture everything, which is why I don't always show the cards. And then other times if it's more easygoing or I'm tired or something like that, things move a little bit more slowly. So it feels like for a long time your soul's journey, it feels like there you have, so it says hidden gift. And so what I'm feeling like for you is that you have these latent abilities, maybe latent talents, gifts, skill sets, whatever, that you honed over lifetimes. And again, if you don't want to subscribe to that belief system, you don't have to. But if we consider a soul's journey, it is going to be more eternal and infinite, and it's not going to be limited. It's not going to be finite, right? So it's not limited by time. And so I imagine if you're here, you're open to that idea. So I won't spend too much time offering disclaimers, but I feel like you have some hidden gifts around, and it's so clear in this reading that it's around creativity, creative expression, artistic expression. I feel like for some of you, this could be spiritual gifts and abilities, maybe even psychic gifts and abilities. And I feel like these are latent. And again, we're getting that subconscious vibe again, where a lot of this is still residing within your subconscious, maybe hasn't been fully tapped into, maybe hasn't been fully utilized or realized. So this does want to actualize in your current life path. I feel like this is going to support you. It's going to support your work, your efforts, your path, your greater successes. I think it ties into that abundance that you seek and or desire and or haven't fully realized just yet. It has to do with these abilities, talents, gifts that you haven't fully tapped into. This sort of, again, ties into like holding yourself back or limiting yourself in some way, because I feel like your gifts in some way are tied to your greater self-expression. So the more self-expressed you feel, the more sort of tapped in or tuned in you are, the more available you are to your inner resources, to your inner gifts. So if there's any place or part or point of your life where you're not feeling fully self-expressed, like you're not feeling heard, you're not feeling fully seen, you're feeling like you can't be yourself completely, it's almost like a dancer on a stage who's like, you know, cowering and really tight, and that's like, right, that's not a dancer, that's not a performer. It's like opening up and dancing and coming alive and that kind of thing. And I feel like the more that you allow yourself to express yourself wherever you're at on your path, whatever, that's where you're going to start not only tapping into these intuitive gifts and abilities or whatever skill sets or gifts you have. For some of you, it's more artistic in nature. This could be painting, this could be writing, this could be any number of things. It could be something very original, like original art form that maybe we haven't fully realized. Again, it's not very common or universal just yet, but these things want to be brought forward and brought out. And the more self-expressed you are, the more you give yourself the green light or give yourself permission to tap into this, you know, that greater self-expression, the more you'll not only discover, tap into, and realize these gifts and greater potentials, but you're going to tap into that greater abundance that wants to come through for you too. Because right now, when we have a couple of those subconscious cards, it's telling me that most everything is latent for most of you. And I feel like many of you might be on the fringe, or like, you know, sort of aware, and like it's like you've dipped your toe in the water, or like you're kind of living in, we'll say, like two minds, where it's like you're aware but you're not using it. But so some of you are aware but you're just not there yet, and some of you it might be almost completely latent and just not fully realized yet. But this is what wants to realize in your path. Your soul came here, well, I mean, it's many lifetimes here, but it's like it's gotten to that point where it's time to allow that breakthrough, or at least the conditions are right for that to happen. Otherwise you wouldn't be here getting this reading. So that wants to break through for you and be realized. Yeah. So part of your soul's journey then is, it feels like sort of taking that leap, taking that first step, stepping into that journey for yourself. I want to see if I think there's more here, so I'm going to give it a moment and see what comes up. Yeah, some of it has to do with fear of the unknown, you know, fear of how things will go, or how you'll be received, or how you'll be understood, or if you'll be understood. Again, when you have those kinds of fears, you're not able to, again, fully realize yourself, fully actualize yourself, because you're holding back, right? You're hindering somewhere. You know, it's a cramped and tighter space as opposed to wide open and expressive. So what wants to happen for your soul at this point is to step into that journey of being seen and just being more like openly, naively curious and playful and adventurous about it, maybe more lighthearted, not having to take it so seriously or make it so heavy or so deep or so intense about like, oh my gosh, this is such a big deal and I have to show up and I have to do this and I have to go up on that stage and tell a joke, and whatever it is, you know, for your path, you have to take the energy and what I share and apply it to your circumstances. Instead, it's more like, I'm going to go out there and I'm not going to give a fuck. You know, like, and maybe not even like that. Yours might be a little bit more humorous, less apathetic, okay? But just being playful about it, being fun, and just being like, whatever, yeah, here goes nothing. And just allowing yourself to enjoy it. It's like the Fool energy from the tarot, right? Stepping into this energy of just going out there, doing the thing, not even knowing any different, not even knowing any better. That innocence, that inner child, that inner wonder child of, I don't know any different. I don't know yet that people can reject me. I don't know yet that people can penalize me. I don't know, you know, as a young child, when we're in that phase of innocence, we're not jaded. We're not expecting the worst. We don't even know to expect the best, and we certainly don't know to expect the worst. So it's going out there a little bit more curiously, playful, naively, such that you're able to allow this to happen. Give yourself this green light. Give yourself this permission, because up until now you haven't. And I think it's because it's been something that you've sort of been like, oh my gosh, and this is intense, and I don't know, and you put all this pressure on yourself and whatever, and then everything sort of collapses. But if you engage it with this kind of energy, it feels like an easier flow for you. And again, this is what's going to bring about greater abundance for you also. Any kind of greater successes that you've sought or wanted to make sure you create in this life, it's tied to the self-expression, this artistic expression, this creative expression, whatever that is for you. Okay. Yeah, so again, we have the cards Harmony. This is power, self-confidence, production, or productivity. So yeah, what wants to happen is this greater alchemy, this change, this transformation, so that you are able to come into that place of personal power, of confidence, and even of productivity, of actually doing the thing, of actually creating the thing, of creating the result, of having an output, you know, being able to have something to show for your life, for your path, for your life's work, have something to show for your efforts. So in the past, it's because a lot of this energy has remained within the realms of the subconscious. Again, it hasn't been tapped into, hasn't been broken through, hasn't been realized. So a lot of this stuff for you has remained unconscious. I'm not getting a perfect feel for whether or not this has been many lifetimes, although I'm going to assume it is, because that's sort of the feel and vibe of the overall message today. But it feels like whether this life or many lifetimes, a lot of this stuff has remained as potential as opposed to being realized. And what wants to come through, the opportunity anyway here, is that you actually realize this in this lifetime. And what I'm feeling for most of you actually as I was sharing that was that many of you have worked for this and you already have this potential available for you from the work of previous lifetimes. And so now it's just breaking through that fear and allowing yourself to move into that greater adventure. Right? So letting this be an adventure. We talked about the Fool's card and the tarot, where it goes out there sort of even naively, optimistically, doesn't know any different or better, has no idea of limitation or the things that might hold it back or all the dangers out there. You know, doesn't really think too much of the unknown. Instead of seeing the unknown as darkness and peril, it sees it as wonderment, of awe, of newness, like novelty, excitement, thrill. So being able to shift that perception so you can give yourself the permission, that green light, to step into your greater expression as well as your greater abundance. That's what wants to come through for you, card pile 1. So that's your soul's journey. If you enjoyed this reading, I ask that you like, that you subscribe, press the bell icon. That way you're notified every single time a reading pops up. I do offer both personal readings as well as coaching programs. You can check out those details below or at erritygreen.com. Thank you, card pile 1. Okay, card pile 2, we're talking about your soul's journey here. And I think for many of you, and I talked about this in card pile 1 also, this is going to be a journey over many lifetimes because the soul is eternal and timeless and infinite. But if you don't subscribe to previous lives for any reason, this could just be, we're talking about your past, you know, your childhood. So you get to decide what that means for you. But it feels like coming into the journey of the soul's remembrance. It's actually a deep spiritual awakening for you, a deep actualization of your deeper, truer self. This really beautiful journey of remembrance. This is the hero's journey, the heroine's journey. It's the coming alive. It's the knowing of the self. It's the knowing of the soul. It's that saying where it talks about humans know no desire once they have found their own soul, something like that. It's probably by Rumi, but it's something along the lines of the desire to know one's own soul. So that's your beautiful soul's journey. The end, just kidding. Just kidding. But it just feels so like good, like right there, like punctuated The heavens have opened, clouds have parted, the light is shining down upon you. But your soul's journey feels very relevant to the soul's remembrance, again, to that hero-heroine's journey, to discovering the self, to getting to know the self, the soul. And it feels like that's a long-standing pattern / journey for you, such that it's what you return to in each of your lifetimes, that ultimately nothing else fulfills you to the deepest level. Nothing feels as meaningful or impactful. For you, you've dropped a lot of these sort of accolades and attire and like all the things of the material world of like crowns and jewels and nobility and all of these opportunities and things you can acquire and possessions and this and that. And you're beyond that. You've lived so many lifetimes of all the things. And you've gotten to the point where there's one thing and one thing only that'll do it for you, and it's discovering your own soul. I freaking love you, card pile 2. If you're in card pile 2, I want to hear from you. Stat in the comments, all right? Because you and I see eye to eye. And so a lot of this stuff that maybe the material world, that's within the material world, you don't value as much. It's not as much of a priority. You might even consider yourself different from most of the world and most of the conditioning that's out there, mass consciousness, where you feel perhaps the oddball out, the black sheep, but you're not able to fully relate to everybody else because, again, your desire is to know your own soul. And on that path of questioning, of curiosity, of availability, of openness, this comes into a greater knowing of yourself. And ultimately it leads to, again, there's one thing that makes you tick, and it's not acquiring the next iPhone or even a lot of the more meaningful things that happen in our lives, you know, that where we might have or discover a lifelong partnership, or we have children, or whatever that is for each and every one of us, a sense of purpose. You know, a lot of those things make people tick. And it doesn't mean that those things aren't impactful or meaningful for you. It just means that there's one above all, and it's knowing your own soul. And it feels like a really giant spiritual quest for you. You know how Jesus and Buddha and a lot of these figures and religious or spiritual history, they sort of went on these epic vision quests, or just quests in general, and ultimately it was like discovering themselves, but it was also sharing their gifts and sharing with other like-minded, like-hearted souls, and so on and so forth. It feels like that's what you've been doing, but over many period of lifetimes, and you've just been on this epic quest to discover more and more of yourself. And it's like this, you just keep circling around to the same place basically, but rediscovering it in a new way, from a new angle, from a different body, from a new identity, from a different path, from a different walk, each lifetime that you reincarnate now or incarnate. Now, if you don't align with that, that's okay. This could very much be aligned with your current path, with how you tend to see things now. You get to decide what this reading means for you, okay? You're your final authority, but you are someone who's deeply spiritual, I would say on the path of ultimate enlightenment, such that your soul becomes an enlightened being on planet Earth. Ultimately, eventually, even this lifetime for some of you, I feel a deep, loving, healing presence. I feel like this is available to you, and you know that very well. That people in your world and sphere were aware of this, and feeling friends, teachers, family. And now, here's the thing though, you weren't able to see your own worth because the way that it was reflected on you, because you were so different, was that you were maybe even rejected or experienced things that told you were unworthy or not good enough or whatever, like you didn't measure up. But it's because you were so different and so bright that people who were on a different level of awareness weren't able to fully see your value or appreciate you. And so you actually are like a bright shining light, a bright shining star, a very conscious / mature soul who knows exactly what it's doing here. This is so much about trusting yourself, card pile 2. I can't emphasize it enough, how much you're being asked to trust yourself. Recognize that if you are different, it's because you're meant to be different. If your message is different, it's because your message is meant to be different. If you stand out, it's because you're meant to stand out. If you feel like you are screaming into the void or into the oblivion and no one's hearing you, it's not because you're meant to be doing that. I mean, more or less, yes, but it's because you are different and you are an evolved soul, and you've walked many, many lifetimes. For some of you, this feels like thousands of lifetimes. Again, whether that aligns with you, whether that was here on Earth or a different planet or different dimension, I don't know. It's going to be different for each and every one of you, and I can only pick up on the things that come through, and everything else is up to you. But your soul in a lot of ways has like the final answer, the final word. Not that there's a final truth, but your soul is very wise and you can trust yourself and your soul. And the reason you've been different hasn't been because you're wrong, bad, or different in that way, but because you're great. And so if anything, you have perhaps not have been able to fully value yourself or your own greatness, and you haven't been able to see your light because you were using other people's reflections of yourself, their understandings, or even, misperceptions and misconceptions of you to determine your worth and value and your esteem for yourself. And none of that was true. In fact, you are the more advanced soul, and there is no hierarchy, right? But if we've been through a period of time where we've chosen a particular walk or path, and this is what we want to do, then so be it. Here you are. And this is about really embracing this journey, recognizing your soul's journey, your greater quest for, we'll say, realization, actualization, enlightenment, the soul's desire to know itself, also the soul's desire to know itself through others. So the people that you experience in your life and your world, coming to know the human condition more deeply, you might be very intrigued by and drawn to psychology and understanding how people tick and what makes them move. And it's because you almost feel different from the average bear. Because you're different from the average bear, you want to know, like, oh, well, why does this bear like to do this? And what makes the bear do this? What makes the bear do that? Because you might not always be able to relate right away. And so you might be very interested in psychology too. Okay, so that was all just card pile 1, meaning your top layer of the reading. We still have a lot more to go. And I'm having to even cut some things off. Like I'm getting a lot from this top layer already. And so if this lands for you and you want to know more, I do encourage you to reach out and to ask for a personal reading if that lands. So there's just a lot here, but I want to be able to share everything with you. If it lands and resonates, I encourage you to reach out. It's just an invitation. So moving into the next layer of the reading, now here's one of your bigger barriers on your soul's journey is trying to control the path. Again, that lack of trust, that lack of self-trust. This is trying to make things work or make things happen or whatever it is. You're on this quest to discover yourself, to discover the soul. And it tends to be that if we say that you have your own neurosis or whatever blocks that each person has. Of course, blocks are only real to the extent that we give them thoughts, words, attention, and energy. If we don't feed them, they don't exist. But it's been your efforts to control and like make things work, strive, whatever. And I think this has to do with fear because you don't trust life. Fear because you don't trust yourself. Fear because you don't trust your soul. So there is something here around fear and overcoming that's going to support you in your greater self-mastery and the remembrance of your soul. Yeah, haha. So a lot of this long-standing journey then is coming into greater harmony and balance within yourself. The change that wants to come through for you on this soul's journey, on this great remembrance, is it feels like a deeper integration. We could say that what's here is the yin and the yang, or the yin and the yang, that masculine, feminine, the polarities. That's one way to see it, and that's a valid approach, and that's how I've made sense of it over the years. And yet it's that balance between strength and flexibility, between active and passive, between movement and stillness, those kinds of energies. And you're learning that. You're learning more to surrender and to trust, to deepen into trust, to let life hold you, to let life move you, to let life nurture you, to let life take care of you, to let others take care of you. So it's not showing me, and I'm not getting a specific energy or connection between how you have this long-standing sort of grand epic quest of the soul's remembrance, the desire to know itself, and how this particular challenge, or put in quotes, block, comes up for you. It's not saying that yet. Maybe it will here in a few minutes, but however it applies to you, control and maybe forcing, pushing, striving, being out of balance, and it's all due to lack of trust, a lack of surrender, a lack of trust in self, and a lack of trust in life itself. So there's something here about that. That's what wants to come into greater knowing or embodiment at this time. So, right, so for your soul's journey, for as long as it has been on this epic quest, it's almost like it gained this level of seriousness to its path. Again, maybe that's also what feeds into the control, where it's like perhaps you haven't allowed yourself to maintain that level of innocence or childlike wonder or playfulness, because what wants to come through, when we talk about that yin and yang energy and that integration, that greater union, that what wants to come through is that playfulness, joy, coming alive, freedom, bliss, being playful, allowing the soul's journey to be playful and fun, allowing yourself to experience life and the moment and everything it has to offer, letting yourself laugh, surrounding yourself with people who laugh, who make you laugh, but allowing yourself to enjoy it a little more. So yes, it's this grandstanding, that might not even be a word, have made it up. Either way, like soul's journey, and yes, the desire to know one's own self and soul is absolutely beautiful, and there's really nothing better than that, right? So absolutely stunning. And there's this yearning within you to just kind of let some of that go and to just enjoy life, and maybe even indulge a little bit, to let go a little bit, to be more playful, more curious, allow things to be a little bit less serious and more playful, more adventurous. So yeah, oh my gosh, a return to innocence. You really can't make this up. You really can't. How perfect. So your soul wants to return to innocence, holding things lightly, being more playful, being a little bit more loose and flexible. You know, this guy in the picture here, it shows him holding onto a grasshopper, it looks like. But look how gentle you'd have to be, just like you'd have to be so gentle to approach a deer. And then we got the childlike card earlier, playful, wonderment, that kind of thing. So it's very much a return to innocence for you, that the sort of epic quest of the soul can be fun. You know, it can be more lighthearted. It can be more easygoing, and that there can be joy on this path of discovery, joy on this path of personal growth and transformation. That there's a whole other side of the coin that perhaps you haven't allowed yourself to express, reside in, occupy, indulge, embody. That's what wants to come through for you at this time. Bliss, joy, and it very much feels like you're at a point in your life or a juncture where you're kind of asking yourself some questions around additional satisfaction or fulfillment, or like, how does this success happen, or how does this vision materialize, or how do I realize this thing, whatever that is for you uniquely. And it has to do with coming into joy and playfulness and laughter and fun. I even feel like thrill seeking for some of you, and that's not the medicine for everybody, right? It really depends on the path that we've walked and what our norm isn't. And for you, it doesn't feel like that's your norm. So to whatever degree you can jump out of planes or go bungee jumping. Now, Errity did not say that. I'm going to go ahead and say that. You know, you're your final authority, entertainment purposes only, but something that you do just for the sake of doing. There is no agenda. There is no outcome. There's no particular purpose that you're engaging in this activity except for joy. That's what's here for you, card pile 2. So card pile 2, that was your reading. Your great soul's journey is around this quest to know yourself, to know your own soul, to realize this on your path, and to make sure that you're balancing that and allowing that journey to be playful, fun, whimsical, and more thrilling and indulgent on this earthly plane. So do let me know if that lands for you, card pile 2. I'd love to hear from you. You can share your story in the comments. Feel free to like, subscribe, press the bell icon. That way you receive notifications when other readings go up. You can also check out details below about working with me or at erritygreen.com. I offer both personal readings as well as coaching programs to support you in your life, in your work, and on your spiritual path. Thank you, card pile 2. Okay, card pile 3. Where are we at here? We're talking about your soul's journeys. These are the long-standing themes and patterns and things that your soul is working out. And so this could have to do with past lifetimes. If you don't subscribe to that, it will just point to your past, your history in this lifetime, perhaps even childhood origins, things like that. This is very similar already to card pile 1. I'm almost like, what is it? How will it be different? But we won't even bother asking those questions. We will just jump right in. So it feels like you are, you're meant for a greater love story, a greater and more fulfilling romance or lifelong partnership. So for many of you in card pile 3, you've had a lot of disappointments in love or just a lack of love, maybe been single for a very long time or have been single for a decent amount of time. It doesn't have to be lifelong, but one way or another, you haven't found the person, or at least a person, someone who feels like soulmate, someone who feels like they're the one, someone or a one, someone who feels like a twin flame. It's like we can date around, we'll say, right? And we meet a lot of people over the courses of our lives. And the fact of the matter is that there's a small minority most of the time that we'll connect with on such a deep, visceral, spiritual level. And I'm assuming that those are valuable to you if you're here and if you're on card pile 3, because I feel like there is more potential here for you for a fulfilling, meaningful, even long-lasting love, relationship, romance, or partnership. It doesn't feel like this has been realized yet, and or you're at the very beginning of a relationship that could offer that or turn into that. Again, perhaps you have turned to, there have been like long-standing patterns of toxicity or dysfunction, or just a lack of health in your relationships and partnerships. You've defaulted to old patterns. They've defaulted to old patterns. You've been unable to work out sort of those old egoic stories and patterns. It's been a challenge to undo some of those karmic or generational cycles. And in one way or another, you tend to attract or move toward the people that are reflections of those cycles and history, past and programs. And then it's very difficult for the two of you to navigate that terrain, basically walking through, landmines and hoping that everything works out, So you've either been through a lot of that and experienced a lot of that with a lot of relationships that had a lot of turmoil or dysfunction or intensity and passion, but also a lot of destruction. Or you've just had sort of mediocre, neutral, non-exciting, non-fulfilling relationships that you could like, meh, 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 take it or leave it, no big deal. I'll keep it, I'll keep it around because it's something's better than nothing, but more or less settling, not really having that full potential that's available for you in terms of love and romance in this life. And it feels like this has been a long-standing pattern for your soul of sort of having this fulfilling love and romance of your life being ever so much out of arm's reach. Again, always finding someone who maybe you don't have that chemistry with or connection with, or it doesn't get to that point where you can build it, and or they're reflections of your past, and you're just unable to fully materialize this more fulfilling partnership. Yeah, so there's a deeper healing that's underway. I feel like this is already happening and you're aware of it. If you're not aware of it, then that would be an invitation for you to become more aware of that and allow this healing to take place. But I feel like you're well aware of these cycles and these patterns in your history. I feel like for many of you, you saw them in your parents and your parents' parents. This feels very much like a generational cycle. If not, perhaps it's a spiritual cycle, karmic related, more energetic in nature. Sorry, I'm hearing noise downstairs and I'm just hoping that it doesn't matter. You guys don't care. Okay, so more or less you're moving through a time of healing, and if you haven't done that, that's the call to action here, is to do that deeper work and greater self-discovery, so you can recognize this is a karmic cycle, or this is a familial cycle, or this is a generational cycle, and it's not something you want to perpetuate. Because here's the thing, the motives, roots, and causes of this pattern are going to be different for each and every one of you. And again, for many of you, this also goes back to previous lifetimes. So I think some of you ultimately, you fear intimacy, and that's what gets in the way, and or you easily shift into dysfunctional patterns, and or so does your partner and other person, such that it turns out to be a disappointing or dysfunctional relationship in one form or another. I feel like even some relationships sort of appear good on the outside, but either have a lot of festering wounds on the inside, and or not a whole lot of love, like numbness, more coldness and distance. I feel that as a pattern as well. But it's feeling like the more you dig into these repressed emotions, the more you dig into and excavate sort of these memories from childhood, or recognition of these cycles, recognition of these patterns, recognition of how you're still carrying these things on and so forth. The more you clear out those repressed energies, the more you're going to see greater freedom and liberation within your material world, within your reality, within your love relationships. It's a matter of clearing out that energy and supporting yourself to that deeper healing work from past lifetimes and so on. But for a lot of you, it feels like generational, feels like DNA related, like the family of origin that you entered into. But part of your work, though, in incarnating within that family system, was to help liberate them from that cycle. So that's something that is really cool to hear for you, card pile 3. Let's see what's next here. Yeah, it feels like the more you can let go of those energies, and the more you can do that deeper excavation and see how you were perpetuating those patterns, or even that they are there, and start looking at your past relationships and seeing what the same themes and patterns are, taking a look at your family history and seeing what they were doing, and so on and so forth. The more you're able to recognize this and clear some of that out, the clearing will happen naturally as you become aware of it. It's almost like you have a closet full of a bunch of junk and stuff and whatever, like clothes and boots and snowshoes and jackets and skis. I don't know why we're saying winter wear here, but you know, just a full closet, okay? It's there, and you just open the door, and you know how everything just falls out. So it's kind of that vibe where it's like you just need to open the door, and the work will happen in and of itself. Like there's a greater intelligence and design to this. It's just a matter of you being available, of you being willing, of you being curious, of you asking the question and recognizing that this is a long-standing soul's journey. When you open that door, everything's going to start clearing out, and it's going to make way for that greater maturing, flourishing, and blossoming in your love life, in your romantic partnerships, and maybe even all around. Because I feel like without this piece, it has made you feel maybe not like full, right? Something was missing. Life was incomplete. It didn't feel just right? There always felt like there was something missing or absent. There just felt like some kind of deficit, gap, or lack. And it wasn't your intention. It's just when when we can't find a partner, we've never experienced love even, that's a hard pill to swallow. I mean, that's something that's very clearly, glaringly missing, at least for the human experience. And so I acknowledge that, and I empathize with that. And your greater maturing and blossoming happens through this path. Yeah. So, a lot of your journeying, card pile 3 was about a solo journey. It was about you taking some time to yourself. Your soul decided on this. It knew very well what it was doing, and it wanted to take that journey into sort of the oblivion, into the void, going solo, so that you could do this deeper work, so that you could do this greater self-discovery. Because here's the thing, when we have people in our lives, like constantly, actively in our lives, it's much more difficult to take the time to carve out the space, so on and so forth, to do that deeper healing work. Just like Jesus was alone for a lot of his work aside from his disciples. Buddha was alone and left his family and his home and his palace to be able to go on this greater spiritual discovery or path or healing or whatever. And this is similar in nature. This was purposeful and meaningful for your soul. This was about you going on this journey on your own and discovering this work for yourself and clearing out these old cycles, habits, patterns, norms, so on and so forth. But what wants to come through here is this message is you've always been supported. You've been held all along. You've been guided all along. Some of you felt very painfully alone, if not lonely, if not desperate at times, and just completely and utterly alone. And you're being told, whether you believe in spirit guides or ancestors, God, Great Spirit, cosmos, higher power, universe, whatever that version or form it is for you uniquely, it was always there. You were always loved. You were always held. You were always cradled. You were always supported. Even when you denied it, refused to see it, couldn't connect with it, couldn't find it. And of course, it's always when we're disconnected from ourselves that we can't find it. But again, that's difficult when you're on a path on your own. And so again, I empathize with that, but you're being told that you were always supported. You are always supported. That this was a greater journey for you. And that purpose is to come into greater healing and blossoming into greater abundance in terms of your love, but in all areas of your life, because it's almost like, again, this pattern of once you feel full with love, things are going to start popping up in other areas too. Maybe that's one reason is you've been relying and waiting on the love thing and not focused on yourself or discovering yourself or flowering and maturing yourself. The more you can take some distance and some focus away from love or a soulmate or finding the partner or finding the marriage or trying to create a home and family, the more you can take your energy and attention away from that, turn it back onto yourself, allow this healing, growth, and maturation to occur. That's what's going to bring about this greater healing that you desire, that you've asked for. That healing does come along, as does a partner or realization of a match, a potential, a romance, a connection. But by doing this work and by sort of allowing the universe to hold you, to support you, to cradle you, you're going to discover so much more about yourself and your own power and your own capability, as well as the ability to tap into sort of self-sourced love and to be able to connect with spirit itself and yourself and to find that level of fulfillment and contentment even without another person, such that if no one ever showed up, you would be content and fulfilled and feel a sense of purpose all on your own. There would be some kind of gratification there regardless. So your soul's journey, card pile 3, has been about seeking to create more love or bring a romantic partnership into your life, something that was very fulfilling and satisfactory for you, and yet you have found a lot of your journey has been alone, but that was purposeful, and it was meant to help you discover yourself and go deeper with your spiritual path. bring yourself to a point of realization on your own and actualize some of the things that you came here for, as well as to clear out some of those old karmic cycles that weren't supporting you or your family, and certainly wouldn't in the future generations. So beautiful work, card pile 3. If this resonates for you, I encourage you to like, subscribe. Please do share your story in the comments. Press the bell icon. That way you receive notifications for videos as they come up. And last but not least, I do offer personal readings as well as coaching programs. You can check out those You can check out those details below or at erritygreen.com. Thank you, card pile 3.